is that they go out there and they consult with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This morning I want to expose to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, a document that is laid in the Parliament when the budget is read. It is called the Draft Estimates and Revenue and Expenditure of Statutory Boards and similar bodies and the Tobago House of Assembly for the financial year 2022. When you turn to page 215 of this document that was laid by Finance Minister Colm Imbert, you look at Goods and Services General Administration for the RIC. This book will provide every single line item that the government must budget for. And the RIC would have passed their recommendations to the Budgets Division of the Ministry of Finance when they are compiling the budgetary allocation for the RIC. This morning, when you look at line item 66, hosting of conferences, seminars, and other functions, the line item allocation is 0, 0, 0, 0. What then this means is that the RIC intends to fulfill the mandate of the government, because I will explain to you how RIC commissioners are appointed. The government will have us believe that RIC commissioners are appointed on an independent basis. Well, one would think that in a perfect world, if we were to look at the Police Service Commission, that would be true. Now we are hearing of interference in that process. But the RIC is appointed by the Cabinet, the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And while the RIC's statutory obligation is to remain independent, they cannot claim to be independent if they are appointed by politicians. And that politician will then pass on their mandate to the RIC to fulfill. And therefore, if government has removed the subsidy from the NGC to TNTech, is it then that the RICs is being told what to do in terms of stifling the voices of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? We have already seen government has extended the state of emergency. We have seen the COVID regulations where you are not allowed to gather, you are not allowed to protest, etc. without permission of the commissioner. There is no commissioner of police right now. Similarly, the state of emergency does not provide for us to congregate and so on. Is this mechanism being used by the RIC through the hands of the government to stifle the voices of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? And Trinidad and Tobago, I say to you this morning that this is your opportunity, that when these rates that are now being proposed by the RIC comes forward, they cannot put those rates into effect until they consult with you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is part of the statutory process. And you must determine whether or not you will continue to sit down and remain quiet as a population, or whether or not you will take the power in your hands as provided to you through this process and let your voices be heard. I say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to the government in particular, the opposition will not buy cat in bag. We need to know before any new rate is introduced to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what is the price that you have fixed, that NGC has negotiated with TNTech as it relates to electricity. Further, we call on the RIC to hold their hands. They cannot put forward any new electricity or water rates without following the statutory process, and that includes the final phase where they are as of now, which is to have these public consultations. No amount of SOE, no amount of COVID regulations will stymie the process and stifle the voices of the opposition and the people of Trinidad and Tobago from letting their voices be heard. Because it is not simply about the RIC taking the recommendation of gas prices from NGC through the hand of the cabinet. It is also that the RIC must consider whether or not the service providers are providing a satisfactory service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, which is included in the process that they must follow by law. I have taken note that the Minister of Public Utilities, when asked about this question of whether or not we must fix WASA and TNTEC before we introduce new rates, is saying it is a chicken and egg situation. That bipolar minister who one day complains about WASA and WASA employees and the expenditure at WASA, and then the next day goes up to Laventille to open a standpipe and congratulate WASA and WASA employees, must understand that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, many of them do not have water in their taps. Many of them go without water for weeks and months, and therefore if any new rates are to be introduced, the part of the process that the RIC must consider includes whether or not the population is receiving a satisfactory service. This morning, I cannot say with any confidence that Trinidad and Tobago's citizens will say that they are receiving a satisfactory supply of water from WASA. We have seen what this government has done to Petrotrin. They have demonized for months Petrotrin workers. They have demonized the expenditure of Petrotrin in an effort to create a national narrative that will gain support for the shutting down of Petrotrin. Similarly, an approach has been taken to WASA. And that is why I say the minister has a very bipolar attitude towards the RIC and towards the public utility sector. If the minister was to read his budget documents, the minister will know in these very yellow books that was laid by the Minister of Finance that over $232 million has been cut from WASA as it relates to employment at WASA. Over $100 million contained in these yellow books. This is not the opposition saying this. This is not civil society saying this. This is contained in the yellow books, and the Minister of Finance likes to tell opposition members, they do not read. Today I want to ask the Minister of Public Utilities, have you read these budget books? Because you are asking the RIC to put forward the new water and electricity rates, and I've told you what has happened with the gas subsidy through NGC and TNTEC, and I'm now telling you what is happening at WASA. $100 million in goods and services, materials and supplies have been chopped from WASA. So right now the population of Trinidad and Tobago cannot receive water in their pipes. Table Land, Rio Claro, Pinal, Debe, many places in South and Central cannot receive a pipe-borne supply of water for months and weeks because of poor aging infrastructure. And you've seen the protests throughout the length and breadth of the country. But when it comes to ensuring that WASA has the manpower and the material and supplies to provide the service, a satisfactory service, it is not contained in the budget. And therefore, the RIC, as part of finalizing the new rates, must not only consider, and this again is part of the statutory process, they do not only consider, or they ought not to only consider, the subsidized rates, if there's a subsidy that remains, because the government is remaining very quiet on this matter. They must also consider whether or not consumers are receiving a reliable supply of water. And with these major cuts in WASA and the shroud of secrecy of this subsidy with NGC, we have no intention of buying cat and bag. And if it means taking to the streets with the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we are so prepared to do. Because the law provides that the RIC must consult with Trinbagonians before. And therefore, with there being no line item, it already signals that government will use their heavy hand to silence the people of Trinidad and Tobago by ensuring that they do not participate in any public consultations. And this issue about sending your comments through emails and text messages will not work. It will not work. It is a way of government using the COVID-19, and we have seen in every situation where government is using the COVID-19 situation as an excuse not to give a voice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the opposition, we are here to provide that voice. We are here to expose what is happening at both WASA and TNTech. And to sum up my presentation this morning, I have a third question for the Minister of Finance. So the first one has to do with whether or not government has removed the subsidy in whole or in part as it relates to the prices that they will now sell natural gas to TNTech, and whether or not that will be passed on to the consumer. The second point being, why are there these massive cuts to WASA, $232 million in expenditure being cut as it relates to personnel and employment, $100 million as it relates to materials and supplies? Is this an emasculation of WASA to ensure that government shuts down WASA at a later point and uses these massive cuts to WASA to say that WASA is not fulfilling its mandate? And the third and final point I want to ask pointedly to the Minister of Finance is, the Minister indicated to the population at a spotlight in February of this year that the government of Trinidad and Tobago took a loan of $5 billion. $5 billion. And the Minister is on public record of saying that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago took a loan of $5 billion to offset the cost that TNTech incurred to NGC in terms of the gas that was provided from NGC to TNTech. We were told that it was not a write-off and that that debt remains with TNTech. And the question that I'm asking this morning, the Minister went further in his comments at that spotlight where he said this was to ensure that NGC did not suffer a similar fate as TNTech, and therefore NGC needed to reflect on their books that they did not have this $5 billion that TNTech owed on NGC's books. So if we were to take the Minister's word, $5 billion was borrowed and given to NGC to put on their books to ensure that they didn't register a loss of any kind. The question is to the Minister, has the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago written off that debt that TNTech has to NGC, or is this just an injection into NGC to ensure that they do not register a loss on their books? Then that would mean that TNTech is bankrupt. And government must explain whether or not the efforts to demonize WASA and TNTech are part of their plans to privatize these institutions and sell it out to friends, financiers, and family of the People's National Movement. I pass you on to the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Barry. And Barry raised some very critical points this morning in respect of his shadow portfolio under public utilities. And he did not even get into his other substantive portfolio, which is also public admin, which as we all know, is responsible for all the rentals of government buildings by friends and families of this present government. And that's another story in itself. So what you heard, before I get into my substantive presentation here this morning, you heard from MP Barry he talked about public utilities, and the present Minister of Public Utilities, Marvin Gonzalez. And if you go to the budget of that ministry that was allocated to them in this budget 2022, Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Public Utilities, is responsible for $2.6 billion for 2022 fiscal year. $2.6 billion. Marvin Gonzalez sat in that Parliament chamber for most of yesterday, and did not account how this $2.6 billion would be spent. And you heard some snippets from Barry, MP Barry, about public utilities, and there's a lot of questions to be asked under public utilities. And Marvin Gonzalez, who's a senior member in the cabinet and was allocated $2.6 billion in his fiscal 2022, could not account in Parliament yesterday, and he was there up to the end in Parliament. So with that being said, I want to get into my substantive presentation, what transpired in Parliament yesterday on Saturday. And before I get into there, I want to read a media release that was sent out last night by our opposition leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, in respect of what transpired in Parliament yesterday. And the heading, the media release, I think most of the media would have it, but I just want to precise some of the comments of that release. And I want to start off with the heading by the opposition leader, what transpired in Parliament yesterday. And I quote, "It is an act of cowardice that Keith Rowley hid from Parliament and did not contribute to the budget debate of this 2022 budget." The Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, did not contribute in his budget statement, and the PNM MPs appeared to be confused by the closure of the debate. By the closure of their debate. They closed the debate, not the opposition. As we all know, in Parliament, the government controls Parliament. They have 23 members, we have 19 members. Plus they have somebody else. So they control Parliament, and they choose to shut down their debate and not account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for a $52 billion expenditure that they have imposed on this country with a $9 billion deficit once again. So, and I want to continue with the opposition leader's media release yesterday. So, it is an act of cowardice, I quote, that Keith Rowley hid from Parliament and did not speak in the budget debate. Is it that Keith Rowley is too weak to stand and speak in Parliament for a mere 45 minutes to defend his own budget? And I will come back to that statement by the opposition leader. I want to also, in her statement, she says, and I quote, several PNM MPs, Minister Stuart Young, the Minister of Everything, Camille Robinson-Regis, who was part and parcel of writing this budget statement and all the books that MP Barry talked about. Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Public Utilities, was in the chamber. Penelope Beckers, the Minister of Housing, a senior cabinet member and a senior official of the PNM, was in the chamber. So you had 4 individuals. Minister Stuart, Minister Camille Robinson-Regis, Minister of Planning and Development, Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Public Utilities, and the Minister of Housing, Penelope Beckers, were in that chamber at 5:45 p.m. yesterday, after their colleague, the member for, I think, Lopino Bonaire, Ms. Julian, spoke. And they all remained seated in the chamber and all refused to speak. I also go on in her release. I want to also state that the opposition was thoroughly prepared, and through our remaining MPs who had not spoken and were present in Parliament yesterday to contribute in the budget debate and respond. But we will respond, and I will expand on that. We will respond where is necessary. And we will respond to the important ministers who have accounted to this country. The government failed to account for what was done in the past year And I continue with the opposition leaders' media release yesterday. The government's failure to account for what was done in the past year, as well as plans for expenditure in the coming fiscal year, is extremely worrying. It is also abundantly clear that the members of the government, I want to state here, it is also abundantly clear that members of the PNM government are not prepared, were not prepared to defend the actions of their colleagues, the Attorney General Faris Alwari. And what the leaders, the opposition leaders is saying about there is that a couple of MPs or members of whether the senators or MPs who spoke in the debate on Friday and on Saturday never defended the actions that was called out by the opposition leader in her debate on Friday. An excellent debate, and this is really the budget of Trinidad and Tobago, where she says rebuild and restore our nation. That was her presentation on Friday, and in this presentation she put some licks on the Attorney General, and not one of their members in their presentation following ever defended Faris Alwari and what was revealed by the opposition leader in her presentation, in her budget response on Friday. Now, what transpired, and I'll expand what transpired there on yesterday afternoon as the Chief Whip, and I want to go back to this budget statement by Minister Imbert, and it says his theme is resilience in the face of a global pandemic. His members, and including himself, did not even have the resilience to continue the debate for over 4 days. They collapsed their own debate yesterday afternoon. Now the government controls Parliament. The government controls Parliament, and what transpired yesterday afternoon is that at around 5:30, 5:45, we were there from since 10 a.m. Saturday morning. And we didn't have a problem coming to Parliament on Saturday, while we had strong objections coming on Saturday, because the last time we came on Saturday would have been in 2015. And the reason the government brought us on that Saturday first budget when they came into government was because they said they were running late on the presentation of the budget, and we abided by that. Now, our information on yesterday, during the course of yesterday afternoon, was that we understood the game that this present government was doing with our speakers and the opposition, and we won't be caught and play their game. And that is why we called on the government at around 5:45 after they put up MP Julian to speak. When they put up, she was the last one to speak at around 5. She ended around 5:30, 5:45, and we felt that she had nothing. She said nothing of substance, so I would not have wasted one of our heavy hitters like MP Barry or MP Munilal to respond to MP Julian, because she literally said nothing. Our members who were waiting to respond to the key ministers, and we would not have allowed ourselves to be run out, because that was the plan by this government, to run out our speakers, run out the opposition speakers, and on part of Monday and Tuesday run several MPs, several ministers, and we would not have been able to respond to anything they would have said. Now, they control Parliament. There is nothing in the standing orders that says that it is 1-1 that we have to go by. There are many times that this government would have put up two of their colleagues to speak and one of the opposition. There are many times in the previous years. And also there are many examples when we might not have been in Parliament, and we might have not attended Parliament, walked up based on principle. What they did is that they ran through a lot of the laws talking to themselves in Parliament. Now, I want to tell the population yesterday and today, the Minister of Finance collapsed his budget. Let me remind this population how many of their heavy-hitting ministers and ministries did not speak. And the Minister of Finance wrapped up his budget debate and not allowing their MPs and ministers to speak. Let me tell you how many. key ones. I have the Minister of Youth Development and National Service. That's a key ministry. That was budgeted, I think, over $400 million this year in allocation. I have it here. Ministry of Youth Development. Over $600 billion this year. $million, sorry. The Ministry of Youth and Development. Another ministry that a minister that did not speak in the debate. The Minister of Public Utilities, the Marvin Gonzalez, as MP Barry mentioned earlier. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development, that's Minister Beckers, and she was in the House at the time. She did not get up to speak. The Minister of Digital Transformation, which is a key ministry in this budget. The Minister of Finance did not allow him to debate. The Minister of Public Admin, another key ministry that is responsible for all the rentals by this government, by friends and family, was not allowed to debate. The Minister of National Security, now what hypocrisy and craziness is that? The Minister of National Security, who is responsible for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Minister Hines, critical ministry. I think it was the third largest budget allocated to that ministry, was not allowed by the Minister of Finance to speak yesterday, and he was in Parliament because when they were he was running to come into the chamber and he was not allowed to speak. Then you have the Minister of Planning and Development, who is the leader of government business, Camille Robinson-Regis. She was there. She did not even speak. She didn't allow herself to speak in the debate. I don't know if the Minister of Finance didn't allow her. Another key one was the Ministry of Labor. The Ministry of Labor, given what is happening in this country as far as unemployment, was not allowed to speak in the debate by the Minister of Finance. When you look at how Tobago House of Assembly, when you have the Tobago Affairs, and you have two MPs representing Tobago, you have Shamfa Cujo and Ayana Roy Webster, was not allowed to speak on Tobago Affairs by the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, another critical ministry that that the people are talking about in lack of infrastructure in this country. A key minister, Rohan Sinanan, was not allowed to speak in this debate by the Minister of Finance. Tourism, the Ministry of Tourism, Randall Mitchell, was not allowed to speak. And there were so much things that they talked about in tourism. The different hotels they were building. I will get back to tourism just in a while. The Ministry of Sports and Community Development, another critical ministry headed by the Minister Shamfa Cujo, was not allowed to speak. Another critical ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, Clarence Rambarat, who is responsible for all those hampers that is being given out. He was not allowed to debate yesterday by the Minister of Finance. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, the Honorable Kazim Hussein, was waiting in the wings to debate. He was not allowed to debate. The Minister of Everything, Stuart Young, who is responsible, his substantive portfolio, besides being everything, is the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, which I shadow. And he was there in the chamber, the Minister of Everything. And he did not even, he's never short on words. But yesterday he was short on words because he could have gotten up to debate. And he did not debate. I wonder why. Why the Minister of Finance did not allow the Minister of Everything to debate. And also the Prime Minister. Why the Minister of Finance did not allow the Prime Minister to debate. The Prime Minister was there at the beginning of the session in Parliament at 10 a.m. I saw pictures today that he went and either play vaccination or give out vaccination, I don't know, somewhere in Diego Martin. But he was around the Parliament building why the Minister of Finance did not allow the Prime Minister to debate. That is the question. I wonder who is the real Prime Minister of this country. Is it the Minister of Finance that he didn't allow all his colleagues to debate? Now, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, when you listen to the wind-up and the wrap-up of the Minister of Finance, he was caught flat-footed. He was caught flat-footed yesterday afternoon. And when he wrapped up, he could not even last his 45 minutes that was assigned to him in wrapping up the budget debate. He could not answer anything. He lasted 50 minutes. He lasted 50 minutes in his wrap-up. He could not answer anything by the leader of the opposition in her a dynamic budget presentation that she gave on Friday morning from 10 to approximately 12:30 p.m. on Friday. He answered nothing about the leader of the opposition, nothing about rebuilding and restoring our nation. That was her theme. The Minister of Finance answered nothing. He was so flat-footed. He was so flat-footed, unprepared to wrap up. He was so unprepared that he had to borrow one of his colleagues, his budget presentation. And all the Minister of Finance could have done in his 50 minutes in wrapping up was to criticize one of our young MPs on the opposition side. And we take umbrage to that because his entire wrap-up was about one of our young MPs, a slip-up in a statement she would have made. This is the Minister of Finance who has years of experience as a politician in Parliament, and he's classless. He's classless to be able, in his 50 minutes of wrapping up a $52 billion budget, he can spend a time on what a statement, an error that one of our opposition MPs made. That is the callousness and substance or lack of substance of the Minister of Finance. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the damage control, I want to say this here. The damage control, or appear the damage control being done by two members of the government. I saw a statement, a media release put out by Faris Alwari. I think maybe last night or something like that. And I want to read it for the members of the public. The Attorney General, and I quote, the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Faris Alwari. Now, before I continue what his release states, Faris Alwari, in his response to the leader of the opposition, Faris Alwari is responsible under the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Legal for over $336 million in his ministry. And not once did he account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago how that $336 million will be spent. And we ask, are there any legal fees for certain people internationally that is in this $336 million? And he should account to the people for that expenditure of $336 million. He never once stated how that money would be spent, and account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for $336 million that will be allocated to the Attorney General office this fiscal year. But he was able to try and do some damage control to himself. But I read on, I go on. In his media release last night or early this morning, the Attorney General states the dramatic and collapse of the UNC opposition in the budget debate yesterday. Now, the budget debate, I want to state again, is not the opposition didn't present this budget debate, didn't present $52 billion and have $9 billion of deficit once again on the country of Trinidad and Tobago. It is you and your colleagues, the Minister of Finance, you, the Attorney General, and your expenditures that is doing this on the population. And as the opposition leader says, it's war on the population in your budget. That is what you have presented in this budget statement. And he is mentioning here that opposition members, and it is true, the opposition, myself as Chief Whip was there, and I did not speak as yet, and also Dr. Munilal and Rudranath Indar Singh, and Saddam Hussein and Barry Padarat, who's next to me. We were waiting to rebut the heavy hitters that did not speak. And I think it was over 18 individuals, ministers, did not speak in the budget debate. So Faris Alwari and Stuart Young, they're being disingenuous and lying to the population. And I use the word lie. I could use the word lie outside. I can't use it inside the parliament, but I will use it out here this morning. They are lying on the population. They are responsible for this debacle that happened yesterday because they control parliament. Not one of them, and I want to repeat it, not one of them, whether it is Penelope Beckers, Stuart Young, Camille Robinson-Regis, or Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Public, could have gotten up at any point in time and spoken in the debate yesterday afternoon, and they choose not to. And the question the population should be asking, why not? Why didn't the Minister of Finance allow the Prime Minister to speak in this debate? That is the question. Why didn't Camille Robinson-Regis allow the Prime Minister to speak in this debate? And it was very simple. Let me tell you how simple it was. They control the parliament. All Camille Robinson-Regis could have gotten up when we didn't put up anyone to respond to Julian, because there was not, I would not call on one of my heavy hitters, and we have 19 heavy hitters in the opposition, to respond to Julian, because Julian said nothing. I would not waste one of my heavy hitters on Julian. Yesterday we saw some backbenchers taking up and wasting parliamentary time. The member for Point Fortin as a backbencher. We also saw Scotland, another member, a backbencher, they don't hold ministries. The people of this country want to hear from the ministers who hold ministries and are responsible for the expenditure of this country and the taxpayers' money. So they could have done, let me tell you what Camille Robinson-Regis could have done, simply done. At 5:45, she could have adjourned the House. She could have simply adjourned the House and come back on Monday morning at 10 a.m. and continue the debate. That would have allowed the Prime Minister to speak. It would have allowed the Minister of Works and Transport to speak. It would have allowed the Minister of Public Utilities to speak. It would have allowed the Minister of Everything to speak, Stuart Young. It would have allowed Digital Transformation Minister to speak. It would have allowed the Minister of Labour to speak, etc., etc., etc. Because we had till Tuesday. The budget debate would have ended on Tuesday. So the question the population and the media, I want to ask the media, go and ask Camille Robinson-Regis and the Minister of Finance why they did not allow the Prime Minister to speak. And they had that power to adjourn the House and come back on Monday. And Monday morning, they could have come to me as the Chief Whip and said, Chief Whip, would you mind if the Prime Minister starts off first on Monday morning? I would have said yes. I would have said yes, because I had Dr. Munilal waiting to respond to Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, the Prime Minister. Or any of our heavy hitters, the remaining heavy hitters. Barry could have responded to the Prime Minister. So it is not that we are afraid of the Prime Minister. Maybe it's the other way around, that the Prime Minister doesn't respond to any opposition member. And that is why we got the information. Their plan was to run out our speakers, carry us up to 8 o'clock on Saturday night, make me put on 3 or 4 more speakers, run us out, and then on Friday I would have about 4 speakers remaining, run us out again by bringing back benchers, and then you would have a host of ministers coming to account or give some untruths in the parliament, and we would not been able to respond. And that is not a debate. A debate is where the government responds to their ministry and we send up a shadow minister or a shadow MP from the opposition to respond to that particular minute. That is what a debate is about. Could you imagine listening to 10 ministers consecutively without any rebuttals from the opposition? That would be a derelict of our duty.
That's a dictatorship.
And that is a kind of dictatorship, and lack of democracy in our parliament, and that is what we have been seeing for the last 6 years. Last 6 years. Now, I want to say before I close, and I say it again, do not take, and as the leader says, do not take my kindness as weakness. I want to use the leader of the opposition statement. Do not take my kindness as weakness. We are very powerful as opposition members, all 19 of us. And the question has to be asked by the media and population. Why did the Minister of Finance collapse his own budget? Was it that he is afraid of the opposition members remaining to ask certain pertinent questions on those particular ministries and those expenditures? So, before I close, I want to ask the Minister of Tourism. You see, if the Minister of Tourism had taken the time to come and debate yesterday, I want to ask him something. And I want to ask him about a board minute. And I want to put that out in the public domain on the Ministry of Tourism. 1 second. Now, in the Ministry of Tourism, there's a company called Trinidad Tourism Limited or Tourism Trinidad Limited. It depends on how you want to do it. TTL is the abbreviated word. TTL. And I want to ask, you see, yesterday we heard about a board minute from the NP, and the board of directors had literally approved an increase in LNG gas, LPG gas, right? And they had to come retract it and blame it on a poor employee. But the evidence is out there in the public domain. That was a board minute approved, and they had to retract it. Now I want to ask the Minister of Tourism, Randall Mitchell, to go and ask the board members on the Trinidad Tourism Limited if there's an action taken by the board that all individuals presently in the Trinidad Tourism Limited on contract will be terminated and will ask to reapply under new terms and conditions, and there is no guarantee, even if you perform well, that you will get back your job in the Trinidad Tourism Limited. That is a board minute on September the 14th, 2021. An action item from the Board of Directors of Trinidad Tourism Limited held on September the 14th, 2021. Now, tourism is a critical industry coming out as far as diversification, coming out of the pandemic that we are in. And there are a lot of things in this budget about tourism. So I ask again, why the Minister of Finance didn't ask Randall Mitchell to come in the lower house yesterday on Saturday. They brought us out on Saturday. We were there. All our opposition MPs were there. They brought us out because we take it very serious. And why a lot of their key ministers did not come to account on Saturday to this country. Because if we as an opposition were there to account and to hold them accountable, at least the ministers of important critical ministries should have been there to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago of this $52 billion budget. So ladies and gentlemen, I think I have said everything. I don't know, Barry, if I missed anything. And I want to say that the government yesterday, in closing, was caught flat-footed. They were in a tizzy. If you look at the YouTube, you will see them running behind the speaker's chair because they were in a scramble. They were confused and dazed. And that's why they were short of words. That's why the Minister of Everything could not get up to debate. He was frozen in his seat. The Minister of Public Utility was frozen, and he was there taking notes, and he was prepared. The Minister of Housing was there in the chamber. She could have gotten up at any point in time and speak and continue the debate. And last but not least, the Minister of Planning and Development, critical minister, the leader of government business, she could have gotten up and continued the debate. And further than that, she could have adjourned. She could have adjourned the sitting yesterday and come back on Monday morning and start the debate. So those are the questions the media must ask to them, not the opposition. We're not in charge of Parliament. The media is here. I want the media to ask those individuals why they collapsed their own budget debate and did not come to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago in the lower house yesterday afternoon. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. I think I said enough this morning with Barry, and stay tuned for our virtual meeting tomorrow, where you have a dynamic team led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, who will say more on what transpired yesterday in Parliament. Thank you so much. I don't know if they have any questions by the media.
Maria Mackenzie here from Newsday. Just two quick questions. The first is, of course, you mentioned a few of the key ministers who the opposition was ready to respond to yesterday. Could you just give me an idea of the key issues, some of the key issues that the opposition you're saying was not allowed to ventilate?
Well, if the Minister of Everything, Stuart Young, had jumped up, as he normally likes to jump up, and he was jumping up all day on 48-1 when we spoke, and somehow when he was time to jump up, he couldn't jump up to continue the debate. He shadows Ministry of Energy. He's responsible for the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs. I shadow that portfolio. I would have asked the Minister of Stuart Young, the numbers that in this book that the Minister of Finance presented as far as gas production, oil production, is really fairy tale numbers and fooling the population. I would have asked him, are these numbers true? I would have also asked him, and I was prepared, I have a whole file, I didn't bring it with me, on NGC. I would have asked him to account for certain things in NGC that are still will come out in the public domain soon. I would have asked him to account for the $2 billion loss at NGC and other issues that are transpiring in NGC. I would have asked him to account for in Lake Asphalt, what is happening in Lake Asphalt. I would have asked him to account for a lot of other things in that energy industry. As a start, that is what I would have asked him to account. And I was hoping that he would have jumped up yesterday, because I was prepared to respond to the Minister Stuart Young in respect to energy and energy affairs, or any other matter he would have raised. So we were prepared. Barry was prepared next to me on public utilities. He gave you a snippet. The Minister of Housing and even National Security, we were prepared. I had Saddam Hussein, I had Dr. Munilal, I had myself, I had Barry Padarat, I had Dave Tanko on finance, I had Michelle for tourism, Michelle, my minister, MP for Moruga Table on tourism, right? So we were prepared, but I was not prepared based on the information that was given to me from their side, what they were trying to do to us, run us out, and then bring in succession people like the Minister of Everything, National Security. That was the plan, to not allow us to be able to rebut to any one of them on after lunch Friday, or after lunch on Monday into Tuesday. They would have a free hand, a free reign, and that is not what a debate is about. A debate is to and fro. So when you put up people of like Skeet Scotland, the MP for Port of Spain, who does not hold a ministerial portfolio, the MP for Point Fortin does not hold a ministerial, and they are backbenchers. The people want to hear how the 52 billion. They want to hear from Rohan Sinanan, Minister of Works and Transport. They want to hear about from Marvin what is happening to the electricity rates, water rates, etc. They want to hear about property tax. They want to hear about the Ministry of Labour and this, whether we having mandatory issues with vaccination or not. Come and tell the population that. They want to hear about tourism. They want to hear about Tobago affairs, because the election is called in Tobago, and none of these ministers could have responded yesterday. And the question the media should be asking, why the Minister of Finance shut down his own debate? Not the opposition didn't shut it down. Why they shut it down themselves?
I think one of the most critical questions that government and the Prime Minister himself tried to evade yesterday is gaining a lot of attention when you look at the front pages of several newspapers this morning. We were still to deal with the issue of national security, and many of our remaining speakers, Dr. Munilal, MP Saddam Hussein, who shadows that critical issue of national security, was prepared to continue the interrogation that was started by the leader of the opposition on Friday of whether or not the Prime Minister was the person who inserted himself at President's house that stymied the constitutional process for the selection of a Commissioner of Police. And this morning, I noticed that several media houses are carrying a particular headline when asked yesterday if the Prime Minister, if he was indeed that person. The Prime Minister danced and he waffled and he never gave a straight answer. And once more the Prime Minister ducked and ran from the Parliament because he knew that that issue was coming up in the Parliament, and that was an issue that we were not going to be relentless on. So that remains in the public domain. And the Prime Minister, once again, just like his Minister of Finance and the others who are evading questions on expenditure and the budget numbers, the Prime Minister himself is evading this critical issue from giving the country a straight answer. Was it yes or no that you were the one who attended President's house and stopped the process, the legal constitutional process of the selection of a Commissioner of Police? And what was the information that you shared with then Police Service Chairman Blissy Prasad? And if the Prime Minister believes that we will stop asking those questions because they collapsed their own debate in the Parliament because he was afraid of answering those questions, that is a campaign that we have no intention of relenting or stopping on until we get a clear answer. And we will use the means legally that are available to us, whether it's through FOIA or other means, to ensure that we ventilate that issue, and the Prime Minister is held to account of whether he attended the President's house on that day and stopped the process.
Yes, question?
So just to get some clarification again, why not use the opportunity after MP Morris Julian spoke and the Speaker asked, for feedback, why not use that opportunity to ventilate the issue even if it was not in direct response to the key ministers?
That is not how a debate operates. I mean, Julian responded to her constituency. Julian said nothing. You know the most important thing Julian said? That she don't know how, that the laptops that underneath us between 2010 and 2015 wasn't good for the children. Now, tell me, that's not even worth responding to, because if she doesn't understand how a laptop operates and the digital transformation that we started back in 2010 under Kamala Prasad predecessor, then I wouldn't waste one of my heavy hitters, according to Faris Alwari, on that. So that I just want to remind you, see, the media is going on a point here. I want to say public utility didn't speak. Housing didn't speak. They're responsible. I didn't have to send up somebody. They could have adjourned the debate and come back on Monday, and you all are missing the point. The question you should be asking, why they collapsed their own debate and why they did not adjourn the House and come back on Monday. Because it was ready on a Saturday. We been there from since 10 o'clock till 6. How long they would have carried us on Saturday? To run out my speakers so that they would have a free-for-all and come and tell a set of untruths in Parliament. And when I jump up on 48-1, I am shut down on relevance or imputed improper motives. I am shut down. So that's the question that the media should be asking. Why the Minister of Finance did not allow the Prime Minister to speak in his debate?
Chief Whip Soyini Gray from CNC Trade has two questions. First of all, she asks, while the strategy to not be run out by the government is understood, because of that strategy, the government ended the debate. Ultimately, was the UNC strategy a disservice to the people of TNT? Should the UNC have used the opportunity to put the criticism of the budget on the parliamentary record?
No. The leader of the opposition budget debate dealt comprehensively with every ministry inside it. So what the question the media is asking, they should be asking, again, and I want to reiterate, why the Minister of Finance did not allow his 4 members in the chamber, critical ministers, to speak and start the debate. Why she should be asking, that media individual should be asking, why Stuart Young didn't jump up and speak? He always jumping up. Why Housing didn't get up and speak? Why Camille didn't get up and speak? Why Marvin Gonzalez Public Utilities did not get up, and they were prepared? Why is the opposition responsible? The people want to hear from the government. The people want to hear from the government how that $52 billion expenditure is being allocated and what is being done with their money. That is what they want to hear. And the opposition will respond and ask more questions on behalf of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. That is how a debate works. What's the second part of that, media?
It's from Soyini Gray.
Mhm.
She asks, how will we then hear the UNC Shadow Minister's contribution to the 2002 budget, or has the opportunity been lost?
Well, how you will hear? Now, it is interesting of that question, because MP Parry, who shadows trade, was very powerful in our presentation yesterday, just like all our MPs. And I have not heard anything in the media of their presentation. So again, the media does not carry the opposition stance on our presentation in our debate in Parliament. All they carry the next day is what the minister says. So we are saying the media should have asked why these critical ministries did not debate yesterday or come back on Monday to debate. They are missing the point. The media is missing the point. They should be asking, I want to say it again, why the Minister of Finance closed the debate and did not allow his Prime Minister to speak. That is what the media should be asking. And Imbert, poor soul, was unprepared to even wrap up. He was unprepared. He had nothing to say in the wrap up. He could not come and refute anything that the leader of the opposition said in her response to him on Friday. That was a very comprehensive response to the Minister Imbert's filibustering of 164 pages. I want to say, you see, just a filibustering for 4 hours. He filibustered on Monday when he presented his budget statement. He filibustered from page 1 to page 164. He filibustered.
Also, I think in response to that question, we must thank the member of the media for giving us an avenue for saying that tomorrow night at our Monday night forum, we will have many of the persons who were denied their right to speak in the Parliament putting forward their views, their ideas and their thoughts, and that will be coming to the media sometime later today. But the long and short of it is that the member for Superior, when she spoke on Friday, she indicated very clearly that the opposition is the voice inside and outside of the Parliament. And if the government is intent on stifling our voices inside of the Parliament, that is not the only avenue and platform that is available to us. We will be taking to the public through the mediums that we have available on social media and through regular media to ensure that we get our voices out over the next few days. We are here today dealing with these critical issues, and we will continue to do so over the next few days. So if government's intention is to stifle us inside of the Parliament, we will take to the streets, we will take to the media houses, we will take to social media to ensure the issues that we are raising are properly ventilated. So thank you for that opportunity to say that tomorrow, stay tuned to your television screens and to your mobile devices as the opposition unleashes on several critical areas. National security, as I said, we are going to be relentless in finding out who that individual was that inserted themselves at President's house. And no amount of collapsing of the budget debate will prevent us from doing so.
So again, thank you so much. Barry, thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you. And I want to ask the media to already ask the Minister of Finance Camille Robinson Regis and the Prime Minister why they collapsed their debate yesterday afternoon. Thank you.